It's been about 6 weeks since the shooting death of Walter Wallace in Philadelphia. We want to warn you, some viewers may find the video you're about to see disturbing. 2 police officers shot and killed Wallace during what his family says was a mental health crisis. The black man was seen holding a knife when he walked toward police. They shot him. It wasn't long before hundreds of people filled the streets of West Philadelphia in protest. Hours later, 28-year-old Rickia Young was driving home with her toddler son and 16-year-old nephew when they came upon the demonstration. The car became trapped between protesters and police. A witness captured what happened on Instagram Live. Police smashed the windows of the SUV Young and her family were in. They're seen ripping her out of the vehicle and allegedly beating her. The video also shows her 16-month-old son being taken out of the car as well. Young's story quickly started making headlines, but she hadn't discussed it publicly until now. She gave her first interview to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Anna Orso is the reporter for that story, and she joins me now. Anna, this sounds like she was just at the wrong place at the wrong time, and it seems like there might have been a wrong response. Did she know what was going on in that area?
Thanks for having me. Rickia said she had no idea. She was resting that night and not really looking at her phone. Had no idea that Walter Wallace had been killed or that the west side of the city had fallen into unrest. And so she put her 2-year-old in the car and went out to the west side of the city to pick up her nephew after she'd gotten a call from him. When she encountered this line of police, she tried to turn around and, as she tells it, was kind of stuck between protesters and police. And that's kind of when you see the police swarm her vehicle there.
You've been following this story since it happened, and you spoke to her. Why did she wait so long to speak about her experience? And first of all, how is she doing?
Yeah, she's been tending to some injuries, and it was really about a month since it occurred that she decided to open up and speak to us. Her injuries were pretty significant. The left side of her body was badly bruised. She was treated for a swollen trachea. She showed signs of internal bleeding, and her left arm is actually in a sling to this day because of shoulder pain. So for a couple weeks, she was really tending to injuries and making sure her son, was okay. As a 2-year-old was sort of working through this. He's experienced trauma and had a welt on his head. Her nephew had shattered bones in his hand and required surgery. So really, for a couple weeks after this occurred, she was kind of taking her time and spending time with friends and family and trying to sort of rebuild her life and sort of, get it together in that period of time.
In the aftermath, the Fraternal Order of Police circulated a photo of her son that was taken that night. Can you walk us through the story behind that?
Sure. So we don't know how the FOP got that photo, but at some point during the evening, somebody shot a photo of a young white female officer, a Philadelphia police officer, sort of holding Rickia's 2-year-old son. About 2 days after the incident, the National Fraternal Order of Police, the country's largest police union, shared the photo alongside, a caption that was completely false. It said that the baby was wandering around barefoot during quote unquote violent riots in Philadelphia when police happened upon him, and basically indicated that police had saved this young boy. A couple hours after it was posted, I asked the FOP about this. They pretty quickly took it down, but at that point, it had already spread all over Facebook. So, this fake story and a photo of Rickia's son being clutched by this police officer, is still circulating on Facebook today, and her attorneys are working to have it pulled down.
What kind of reaction did that photo have after the narrative that the FOP put out being false? What kind of response did the people have?
People were really upset. First of all, and I think most importantly, Rickia felt really, really hurt and extraordinarily traumatized by seeing that image, mostly because it reminded her of the evening and was, like I said, a false narrative. But Beyond that, I think people in West Philadelphia were really hurt by it. This is a majority Black neighborhood, and there are certainly some racial undertones to the post that kind of suggest that people in this neighborhood didn't care that a 2-year-old was walking around barefoot during, as they said, violent riots. Again, none of that was true, but I still think that people who lived in the neighborhood and who saw that were certainly hurt by it.
And kind of reiterate for us, how is she doing? How's her son? How's her nephew? I mean, not just physically, but are they feeling comfortable to be around people? It's got to be traumatizing.
Yeah, I think for Rickia and her son, it was completely traumatizing. They're still kind of working through things. Rickia's son can't really speak, but he has seemed to vocalize some trauma. He's kind of afraid of police lights when he sees them going off. She had never really had an interaction with police before this, beyond, she said, getting pulled over once. But now she really has no interest in seeing police. She kind of shakes in fear when she sees anybody in a police uniform. She hasn't really had an appetite. Her son is struggling to sleep without being next to her. And so both of them are really working through some pretty severe emotional trauma as a result of this as well.
What has the city of Philadelphia and the police department say they're going to do to make sure something like this doesn't happen again?
Well, they've said very little. The city opened an internal investigation, through the police department's internal affairs unit. So there's very little they can say with any sort of specificity. The police department did say that 5 officers have been placed on desk duty as pending the outcome of that investigation. But otherwise, they have said very little and have not even really confirmed that it occurred, and certainly, have not provided any reason why it happened.
Is Rickia planning to take any legal action against the city or the police department?
That's the expectation. Her attorneys say that they plan to file a lawsuit against the city and the police department. They're still kind of working through the details of that, and we are expecting that to be filed in the coming weeks.
I encourage people to go read Anna's reporting. Anna Orso, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.